camouflage trunks. He is fighting out of and representing his home of Baltimore, Maryland.
So guys, on cue, middle rounds.
Here's the corner. Frank should not be in there. We were talking about that. He's just setting him.
Jake Paul versus Gervonta Davis in 2025 was a brutal clash of power, pride, and chaos. On September 30th, the world watched as hype met a knockout machine, leaving one man broken under the lights. This was Tank Davis reminding everyone that nightmares come with a left hand.
I'm not shocked. I mean, his last fight when he fought Lamont, Jake Paul was at the fight. He told y'all he was going to fight somebody like Jake Paul, so I'm not shocked.
September 30th, 2025, Atlanta, Georgia, a night etched into boxing history before the first punch was thrown. The long-awaited clash between the undefeated knockout king Gervonta, Tank Davis, and the sport's biggest disruptor, Jake Paul.
The recipe for disaster for Tank Davis.
The atmosphere inside State Farm Arena was beyond electric. It wasn't just noise, it was raw tension. Every fan was on edge, every camera flashing. The pressure hung in the air like heavy static. Boxing fans worldwide tuned in, knowing this would either be the crowning moment of a champion or the ultimate shocker pulled off by the problem child.
So, as a competitive sport boxing fan, this is nonsense. It doesn't make any sense for the sport, for Tank as a world champion fighting Jake Paul.
That is, if I'm not mistaken, a 92-pound weight difference. Almost a 100-pound weight difference.
On one side stood Gervonta Davis, 24 wins, no losses, 23 by knockout. Born in Baltimore and raised in the toughest neighborhoods, Tank wasn't supposed to make it this far. He grew up surrounded by violence, bouncing through foster homes and a system that never believed in him. He had already conquered 2 divisions, holding the WBA super featherweight and WBA lightweight titles simultaneously. To the crowd in Atlanta, he wasn't just a fighter, he was a symbol of grit, a man who turned every hardship into a weapon.
It is looking like through the eyes of at least one of the guys in it, because as of right now, Gervonta Tank Davis has said nothing. He has said not a lick about this fight. On the other hand, the master marketer that he is, has already dropped a video called "I'm Fighting Gervonta."
And across from him stood the sport's most unlikely challenger, Jake Paul. 10 wins, 1 loss, 7 knockouts. Once mocked as a YouTuber clowning around online, he now stood in the ring against one of boxing's most dangerous fighters. His rise had been chaotic, polarizing, yet undeniable. Earlier in 2025, he shocked the world by defeating Mike Tyson, yes, that Mike Tyson, in a fight that split fans down the middle. Some called it a spectacle, others a robbery, but Jake's hand was raised, and that was all that mattered. That one placed him in conversations no one ever thought he'd belong in.
A 65-pound weight advantage, okay? They're smaller guys, but for 5'5", they'll pack a good punch. Typically, they're mixed martial artists or boxers, yeah. But when you're a boxer, that's 6'1", that's only had 1 loss on the record. Of course, Tommy Fury doesn't want to face him again.
From Cleveland, Ohio, Paul had reinvented himself from internet prankster to serious contender. He no longer jumped into fights blindly. He trained like a professional, surrounded himself with elite coaches, and treated every bout as both a business and legacy move. To his fans, he was the modern rebel, shaking up a sport that had grown too rigid. To his critics, he was a fraud, a marketer without real boxing substance. But love him or hate him, he forced his way into the spotlight. And now, on September 30th, he was staring down the most feared puncher in his weight class.
I think about the position of Jake Paul, of Tank Davis, and how each of them are coming into this fight, the more I start to also wonder, is Tank Davis taking Jake Paul serious?
The crowd was split down the middle, half chanting for Tank, the other half screaming for Paul. It felt less like a boxing match and more like a cultural clash. Tradition versus disruption, legacy versus spectacle. The walkouts set the tone. Gervonta, Tank Davis came out first, wearing white trunks with yellow and silver trim, his stare cold and unshakable. No smiles, no crowd work, just the focus of an executioner ready to deliver another highlight reel knockout. He'd done it 23 times before, and tonight, he promised to add Jake Paul to that list. Then came Jake. Silver and chrome trunks gleaming under the lights. His walkout was loud, chaotic, fireworks bursting as the crowd erupted in a mix of boos and cheers. He thrived on it. The hate fueled him as much as the love. He carried himself like a man who belonged there, whether people believed it or not. For Jake Paul, this wasn't just another fight. This was validation. When both men finally stood across from each other, the arena fell into that eerie silence before chaos. The referee brought them in. The stare-down was intense. Tank glared at Jake like a predator sizing up prey, while Jake, taller and bigger, refused to blink. The bell rang. Round 1.
Final 60 seconds as we are in the 6th round. Let's see what happens because the words are being thrown at each other. Let's see if the punches start being...
Tank came out like a storm. No testing, no feeling out. His footwork was razor sharp, cutting off the ring instantly. He stalked Jake, waiting for the moment to unleash that deadly left hand. Davis had built his career on fast starts and violent finishes, and this was no different. Jake stayed calm, pumping his jab and using every inch of his reach. At 6 feet 1 inch, he towered over the 5 feet 5 inches Davis. That height and reach advantage were supposed to be his shield, and he used them early. Stiff jab, step back, reset. No rush, no wild swings. He looked like a man who understood exactly what kind of monster stood in front of him. 2 minutes into the round, Tank struck first. A lightning-fast left hook crashed onto Jake's jaw, the sound echoing through the arena. Jake's head snapped back, and the crowd gasped, waiting to see if he'd fall. But Paul stood tall. He nodded, smirked, and motioned for Tank to bring more. The audacity stunned everyone. Tank didn't hesitate. He surged forward, hammering body shots, ripping hooks to the ribs, trying to fold Jake early. That's when Paul fired back. A straight right hand, clean and heavy, landing flush on Davis's chin. For a split second, Tank froze, absorbing it. The crowd erupted. Jake Paul had just landed on one of the most dangerous fighters alive, and Tank had felt it. The arena exploded into chaos. Commentators were in disbelief. The knockout king was meeting resistance from a man who wasn't supposed to belong. Jake Paul didn't run. He didn't fold. He stood in the pocket and fought back.
They're just far in between.
The round ended with both men trading blows. Tank cutting off the ring, Jake countering with jabs and rights. Neither looked shaken when the bell rang. Davis returned to his corner with calm menace. Paul nodded, signaling he was still in it. It was proof this was a real fight. Tank landed clean, Jake fired back, and then midway through the round, Paul unleashed a full-power right hand that landed square on Davis's chin. For a moment, Tank froze, legs stiff, eyes blinking. The undefeated knockout king, known for ending careers with one punch, was stunned. The crowd erupted, screaming, spilling drinks, jumping on chairs. Jake Paul had just rocked Tank Davis, creating the line of the night.
Could survive.
But here's the thing about Gervonta, Tank Davis, he's built for war. You can hit him. You can make him stumble. But you better be ready for what comes next. Because Tank doesn't retreat, he retaliates. And retaliate he did. He drove vicious body shots into Jake's ribs that echoed through the arena like shotgun blasts. Left to the liver, right to the solar plexus, another ripping hook under the elbow. Suddenly, Jake wasn't marching forward anymore. He was backpedaling, arms tight, gasping for air. The look on his face said it all. Those body shots hurt in ways you can't describe unless you've felt them. The balance of power shifted instantly. One moment, Jake had the crowd screaming in his favor. The next, Tank reminded everyone why he's one of the most feared finishers alive. Championship experience isn't about being perfect. It's about taking a moment of chaos and flipping it in your favor. And Tank flipped it like only he can.
As a sport fight is concerned, I want to make sure I make that clear. Again, this is not me hating on it, because I do think that both guys have been very upfront with what...
Still, Jake didn't go down. He survived the round, gritted his teeth, raised his gloves, and stayed in the fight. That was enough to keep everyone on edge, wondering if this could be one of boxing's greatest upsets. The tension in the arena was unbearable. Was this hype, smoke and mirrors, Or was Jake really about to shock the sport? Round 3 began, and that's when history was made.
Much though where it can't be overcome, Shakur. And is it in this case here when you've got what is like a 70-pound difference between these?
Tank Davis came out laser focused. The smirk was gone. The patience was gone. He had tested Paul, felt his power, and now it was time to end the experiment. Paul circled cautiously, his jab flicking out, but his footwork was a half step too slow. Against a predator like Davis, 1 half step is fatal. 2 minutes in, Tank baited him, dipping right as if going for another body shot. Jake lowered his guard for just a split second, and then it happened. Tank unleashed his trademark left uppercut, slicing through Jake's guard and landing perfectly on his chin. The impact echoed over the crowd and commentary. Jake's body went limp before hitting the canvas, silver trunks crumpled, arms sprawled, head bouncing off the mat. The arena erupted, half in horror, half in triumph. The referee didn't bother with a full count. It was over. Brutally. Completely.
All of us getting together to go to the circus for the evening. I think the reason why there's pushback against it when Jake does it is because Jake, and obviously tactfully, is going like, what are you talking about? This guy's a world.
What made it truly shocking wasn't just that Tank knocked Jake out. Everyone knew he could end it anytime. The real shock was that Jake dared to step in, swing, and even land on Tank, making it a fight before the inevitable. By night's end, the knockout was already hailed as one of 2025's most iconic highlights. Violent, dramatic, unforgettable. Twitter exploded with clips, fans argued nonstop, and some mocked Paul for testing Davis.